You know that guy who's always lecturing you about microaggressions against trans-species cats? That guy who talks down to you about how much of an all-round shit human being you are for not knowing what comes after Q and LGBTQ. I'm sure there's a silent H in there somewhere. Well, cable news knows that guy, but in news form. And his name is MSNBC, the place for politics. Or rather, whiny hyper-partisan horseshit. Here's a list I made. Ever noticed the lack of racial diversity in emojis?
Do you think there is a limitation we're suffering from in terms of the racial diversity of these emojis? It is not just a black-white issue. Do we have an image of what you have to go with if you want to render, for instance, someone who is Arab or Middle Eastern? Yes, I mean, it's not a particularly nuanced.
I always hated those things anyway. Who better to lecture you about society's lack of respect for women than somebody who wears tampons for earrings?
Raina made for me last week some tampon earrings.
Always a crusader for social justice, Peru is no stranger to calling out problematic speech.
I want us to be super careful when we use the language hard worker because, I actually keep an image of folks working in cotton fields on my office wall because it is a reminder about what hard work looks like.
And encouraging, hair positivity.
The hair of the president and the first lady matters. Again, why hair matters.
She got fired because I guess they just wanted her to read the news.
What they wanted me to do was just show up and read the news, and so what I...
Oh yeah, but it's, the network's racist.
A segment on MSNBC pokes fun at Mitt Romney's family photo, specifically zeroing in on Romney's African-American grandson.
Did you hear Morning Joe has a band? If your answer was no, I'm so sorry.
I'm looking inside, and I've been mystified.
It's also funny how anti-Trump his music is when he used to be a Trump supporter. In fact, Joe's bias towards Trump was something even the lefty media tore into MSNBC for.
Of course, members of the media who have been going easy on Donald Trump, who might kind of want to run with him, let alone see him elected, and that would, of course, be Joe Scarborough.
But sure, that guy will never be president. Oh. Guess him winning the nomination and the presidency was, not part of the plan.
He looked like a thug. He looked like a goon. You look at the handshake, you look at this. Just what a thug.
During the primary season of 2016, MSNBC briefly interviewed an attendee at one of Donald Trump's rallies.
With some Trump supporters, let's play what they said.
David Duke and people like that, they come out from under the rocks all the time around this time this year. It got nothing to do with Donald Trump. We're all Americans. I think we need to stop with all the racist stuff and the race baiting. Like me and my friend right here, we just met today, we was talking. You know, we got to stop with the racist stuff and this, that. We all Americans, man, and nobody paying David Duke no mind.
Clearly, let me just be clear here. Obviously, the majority of Donald Trump supporters are not African American. I don't know how many African Americans were in that building, but that is one person that we have chosen to cut that sound from, David.
Thanks, MSNBC, for clearing that up for us.
Reverend Al Sharpton, there he is.
And at number 15, we have Reverend Al Sharpton versus the Teleprompter.
But resist we must. The tortoise in the race. In evolution and Galileo, this whole thing of Galileo.
You know, I would have thought the first things you'll look for in a news host would be actually being able to read the news.
Why was traffic problems email sent? CIA's counterterrorism center. Veteran Affairs Secretary Shinseki. Why do I always mess up his name? Shinseki. nothing there.
Remember, kids, you will never lose an argument if you don't let the other person speak.
So you just slandered the governor. You called him a homophobe. I think that's
Cut
really
his mic off.
inappropriate.
Cut his mic off. I'm not going to. I gave him a chance to. We'll bring him back if he wants to be courteous.
Yesterday, as President Obama addressed the veterans of foreign wars in Phoenix, a man at a pro-healthcare reform rally just outside wore a semi-automatic assault rifle on his shoulder and a pistol on his hip.
Back in 2009, MSNBC broadcast footage of a protester carrying a rifle and a handgun while protesting an event for President Obama.
Because people feel like, yes, there are Second Amendment rights for sure, but also there are questions about whether this has racial overtones. I mean, here you have a man of color in the presidency and white people showing up with guns strapped to their waist.
Only thing is, he wasn't white. MSNBC just edited the footage.
Or to their legs.
It sounds simplistic when you put it that way, but it is real that there is tremendous anger in this country. Anger about a black person being president, to the black man becoming president. And, you know, we see these hate groups rising up, and this is definitely part of that. Because there's so much anger in the country about him, about what's going on with government.
Angry at government and racism, you put those two together.
Hey, kinda looks like Malcolm.
Made that impossible. So today I am announcing my resignation from Congress.
When Democratic Congressman Anthony Weiner was forced to resign office over allegations of sexual misconduct, MSNBC went through great lengths to cast these allegations as baseless.
CNN then put Mr. Breitbart on television to brag about this and to make further allegations despite his history of smearing people and getting it wrong. The infamous retweeter seems to have had a preoccupation with the congressman's possible connection to women on Twitter. Quote, Representative Weiner loves young girls, follows this one too.
Even going as far as to suggest that the congressman's Twitter had been hacked.
Hacked into the congressman's Twitter account, tweeted a fake link to that picture, claimed the picture was deleted, but he alone had the screen cap, and then spread the word. In other words, it was all a photoshopping scheme elaborately played out on the internet.
Eventually, Weiner's antics, which later involved sending nude photos of himself to a minor, managed to drag down Huma Abedin and the Clinton campaign with him.
Sexting investigation into Anthony Weiner leading to an October shocker, putting Hillary Clinton on the defensive. The FBI announcing that it's investigating newly discovered evidence related to her emails.
Now he's a convicted sex offender. Hey, not the only Weiner to get a Clinton into trouble, am I right?
The odds of the Democrats holding on to the Senate moved to 85%. Republicans are going to be so mad about this.
The Republican Party is teetering right now on this brink of not being relevant.
Going to hasten the demise, the end of the Republican Party.
The avalanche that we were told for months that was going to happen for Republicans has not happened.
Good Lord, the Republican Party has swept control of Congress. And they did it, Joe.
Yeah.
Big wins in battlegrounds that were thought to be a lot tighter than they actually were.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It was not even close.
Former Baltimore wide receiver Chris Matthews' love for Barack Obama is no secret.
That smile, that cute smile we all love in that guy, that wonderful boy smile of his he just gave us there after he made his little crack about the holiday spirit.
A love that runs so deep that it induces involuntary sensations in your body. Like a thrill that runs up your leg.
The feeling most people get when they hear a Barack Obama speech, I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
Steady.
Poor old Chris. You've never been able to live this one down.
I think people are thrilled tonight. I imagine that thrill is probably maybe not quite so tickly on your leg anymore.
I know you get that. Your sign holder has already raised that issue. By the way, his name is Mitch McConnell
Chris,
of Kentucky.
you're making my leg tingle.
See, this is. Well, I'm gonna. What do you mean? How's your leg? What do you mean your leg's tingle? I don't get what you mean. What you mean?
You're making my leg tingle.
I felt this thrill going up my leg. I mean, I don't have that too often.
With the media research, we just want to know really quickly, how is your leg?
What leg?
The leg. Is the thrill still there in the leg, or is it not? What was that?
Just gotta help.
Go.
Just leave it.
There's one thing that just about every single job in America has in common. Dudes get paid more for doing it.
The gender wage gap doesn't exist, you stupid fuck. You quick Google search it.
Pepe!
Rachel Maddow again here for this one.
Because Pepe refers to Pepe the Frog, this otherwise innocuous cartoon character, which, as unlikely as it may sound, it is one of the things that the racist right has adopted as a symbol online. This smug frog is willing to, speak the truth about race and the Jews. There's also David Duke tweeting out Pepe the Frog. Pepe the Frog supporting David Duke in his Senate race in Louisiana. And there's Pepe the Frog again as Donald Trump and his wall on the southern border. And this one's just from yesterday on David Duke's Twitter feed. Donald Trump kissing Pepe the Frog, the little white supremacist baby signal.
If Pepe the Frog is a racist symbol by logic of a few racist iterations of the character, then so is Donald Duck, Krusty the Clown, Brian and Stewie Griffin, Bugs Bunny, Mickey Mouse, Tom and Jerry, the Three Little Pigs, Dumbo, Peter Pan, the Flintstones, Yosemite Sam, and Captain Nazi.
What is Donald Trump Jr. doing posting the neo-Nazi frog thing?
Oh, what is Donald Trump Jr. doing posting out neo-Nazi propaganda?
Now, in another radio interview, Donald Trump Jr. has just raised the specter of gas chambers.
Well, here's the thing. Gas chambers were considered a humane form of execution in the United States also, as recently as 2010. So this, like tying Pepe the Frog to white supremacy, is just another example of how leftists, like those at MSNBC, see racism in everything.
It's ridiculous, right?
Which brings me to my next point.
Mr. President, take your campaign of division and anger and hate back to Chicago.
Woo! Take it back to Chicago, that anger and hate. So when I listened to that, to me the words seem sort of loaded, but I wanted to get you all's thoughts. Tori, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that really bothered me. You notice he says anger twice. He's really trying to use racial coding and access some really deep stereotypes about the angry black man. This is part of the playbook against Obama, the otherization. He's not like us. I know it's a heavy thing to say. I don't say it lightly, but this is niggerization.
Racism! Racism everywhere! During the Ferguson riots, MSNBC were acrobatic in their attempt to spin rioting, looting, and assault as legitimate forms of protest.
Arson and looting, while illegal, are also not necessarily violent.
To a community that has been shouting, expressing their anger, their outrage, understandable anger and outrage, they are now being told that their right to just leave their home is being taken away. A curfew in place for the historical context of a black community now being told you need to stay home and you cannot go outside your homes, and your First Amendment rights are only in place for a certain amount of hours during the day. There's historical context for what we just saw.
Look, I'm not disputing whether the shooting of Michael Brown was morally or legally justified. Honestly, I don't want to touch that with a 20-foot pole. But MSNBC's coverage of Ferguson was both disingenuous and shameful.
Post more than 20% of female undergrads at 27 prominent universities say they have been the victims of sexual assault and misconduct.
Ha! Another issue invented by feminists.
Writing in the school newspaper, UVA student Emily Clark says of the woman known only as Jackie, quote, "I believe wholeheartedly that she went through a traumatizing sexual assault."
Most high-profile reports of such cases have been since debunked as fake news.
By Rolling Stone and conducted by the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism, describes in detail the life and death of a now discredited account of a brutal gang rape at the University of Virginia.
Turns out that most rapes that occur in colleges are incidental.
And I think there are serious questions about the fact that they, one, threw their victim, threw this woman, their source, under the bus.
not raising the wage, the minimum wage, is every bit as racist as comments made by Cliven Bundy and Donald Sterling.
Treat them like good guys.
Yes.
You can't make enemies of all the working poor and the poor and say you don't like the bums or the ones with fancy fingernails or whatever the hell they're talking about these days, these racists.
I want to walk a fine line because I spent years sitting in the briefing room.
People you know what racism is. Yes, I do. Because you don't experience it. Know what
What I have here is a copy of Donald Trump's tax returns.
So, as I've covered in my video, The World's Greatest Troll, President Trump has been known in the past to intentionally leak stuff to the press himself.
So who else would have had a copy of the tape? Donald Trump.
We know this is probably the same case with the tax returns, as David K. Johnston, the journalist who obtained the documents, says that he just randomly found them in his mailbox one morning.
You open your mail, you find these pages.
But that didn't stop Mad Cow Maddo from taking the bait though, first tweeting this, then later revealing that she only had the returns from 2005, a year where Trump earned over $150 million, paying $38 million in taxes at a rate of 25%, far higher than Bernie and even Mitt Romney. Simply put, Maddo's tax return stunt is what Van Jones would probably call a nothing burger.
It's just a big nothing burger.
Not only did she inadvertently depict Trump, who she hates, in a good light, but she also managed to pretty much kill the release your tax returns issue. 2018 chess at its finest, folks.
Our colleague Brian Williams is back in Kuwait City tonight after a close call in the skies over Iraq. Brian, tell us about what you got yourself into.
In 2003, Brian Williams aired a segment on the Iraq War where he claimed that the Chinook helicopter he was flying in was hit by an Iraqi rocket-propelled grenade and forced into an emergency landing.
Almost blown out of the sky. That hole was made by a rocket-propelled grenade, or RPG.
However, the flight engineer Lance Reynolds, who is aboard the Chinook in front of Williams, says that it was in fact his helicopter that was forced into that emergency landing, adding that Williams landed an hour and a half later. Later in 2013, Williams continued with his BS, saying to David Letterman,
2 of our 4 helicopters were hit by ground fire, including the one I was in.
No kidding.
RPG and AK-47.
What happens the minute everybody realizes you've been hit?
We figure out how to land.
2 years later, Williams claimed that he flew into Baghdad with SEAL Team 6. Only thing is, the SEALs don't embed journalists. Brian Williams was eventually suspended for his 12-year-long charade, but later returned as MSNBC's chief anchor. And if that doesn't inspire trust in your network, I don't know what does.
What if we're seeing something else, something deeper, a more permanent separation between Clinton and Trump? Could we be seeing our first true landslide in a long time?
Consistent with their record of not being able to accurately predict an election, MSNBC of course got it wrong again in 2016. But one thing to understand here is, MSNBC is a progressive news outlet, meaning they won't worry you with sad truths. Better yet, when you tune into MSNBC, you tune out of reality. The safest space on television, MSNBC tells you, the viewer, what you want to hear. And that, well, that's just swell. If you feel like you've been thoroughly disinformed by this video and you like what I do here, I just set up a Patreon. Last vid got demonetized and the others don't seem to be doing very well either with no ads being played on them, so yeah, I'm an e-beggar now. So please like, subscribe, and
send more money. I'll send more stuff.